Folks, he is a public policy analyst, economics expert, also professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey. Dr. Michael Busler is back with us. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. I've got this story here. Let me pull it up for us. NASDAQ streak of records ends after mixed session for Wall Street. This was on the 27th. What are your thoughts on the economic numbers towards as we get towards the beginning of a new year?
Well, I'm very optimistic. Um, the consensus view from economists is that next year the economy will slow down. I don't agree with that. I think the economy is going to show surprising strength when the fourth quarter numbers are released in January, and I think that's going to lead into a fairly strong 2020. In fact, I think growth next year will be higher than it is this year, and I say that for a couple of reasons. One, recall when President Trump got into office, he set economic growth as his top priority. So the first thing he did was get rid of a lot of regulations that were really counterproductive. He can do that through executive order. Then he convinced Congress to cut taxes for all Americans, for the middle class, to stimulate demand in the economy, and for the upper classes and corporations to add new capital to the economy for growth. Well, the tax cut went into effect in 2018. The economy grew at just about a 3% rate, and it would have been higher had the Federal Reserve not been so aggressive. Again, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates 8 times between the end of 2016 and the end of 2018. So as the economy was starting to grow in 2018, the Federal Reserve was raising interest rates and shrinking the money supply. What happened then, it held growth to around 3%, which was much better than we've seen in the past in 2018, but then it started to slow growth down in 2019. Well, the Fed realized that they'd made a mistake, so in July they started to cut interest rates. They've dropped interest rates 3 times, and they've stopped shrinking the money supply. So what that is going to do, I think fourth quarter, as I mentioned, will be stronger than most people think, and that's led by the consumer. And Christmas sales are doing much better than last year. All of the numbers are not in yet, but it looks like we're going to be about 3.5% to 4% better this year than we were last year. And with the consumer feeling extremely confident, with consumer wages rising at the fastest rate literally in decades, and with inflation remaining relatively low, under 2%, those wage increases translate into real increases in purchasing power. So I think next year the consumer will help lead an increase in economic growth. I also see all of the trade issues being resolved very favorably. Again, when President Trump got into office, he looked at all the trade agreements for whatever reason. Every single one of them was slanted in favor of our trading partners and to the detriment of the U.S. For instance, in the automobile industry, they made a car in Europe and sold it in the U.S. We charged a 2.5% tariff. We made a car in the U.S., sold it in Europe. They charged a 10% tariff. In China, they sold a car here, 2.5% tariff. They charged us a 25% tariff. Well, the result of that was we're buying a lot of foreign goods, and they're not buying very many of ours, and we have this negative balance of trade. So President Trump confronted that immediately, and he has been very successful. We have a new trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, which was just ratified by Congress. We have a new trade agreement with South Korea, rather. We have a new agreement with Japan. India and the European Union are talking with us, and we're coming up with something with China. So with all those positive things, I'm very optimistic about next year.
So, I mean, I've got some stories to kind of back up what you're saying here, especially this one here. Low-wage workers are getting bigger raises than their bosses. This is from CBS News. The 25% lowest paid Americans enjoyed a 4.5% income boost in November that outpaced a 2.9% gain in earnings for the country's highest paid workers. that's incredibly bad news for people that are just anti-Trump, never want to give him the benefit of the doubt for anything he does.
More importantly, it's great news for America. So the prior administration emphasized how we have a big income inequality problem. Now, their solution to that is overtaxing people that earned income and giving that money to people who, for whatever reason, haven't earned income. Now, that's not really a long-term solution. In fact, it will tend to stagnate the economy. What President Trump is doing is saying, look, what people really need at lower income levels is what they really need is opportunity. So I'm going to get economic growth up. It's going to provide opportunity for everyone. And what's happening, as you point out, is that people with lower incomes are seeing greater wage increases than people with average or higher income. So President Trump is really helping the people that need the help the most, even though the Democrats continue to tout the tax cut. All it did was cut taxes for the wealthy. It really didn't help anybody else. Now, that's absolutely not true. The tax cut helped everyone. He did cut taxes for the wealthy and corporations, but that creates new capital, and the new capital will allow the economy to expand as it has, and as the economy expands, it provides new job opportunities for people who don't have very good jobs, or there are many people that have dropped out of the workforce because they couldn't find a job. They're starting to come back into the workforce. This is great news for all America, but especially for lower income America and a lot of the minority groups too. African American, Hispanic, and women entering the workforce for the first time, the unemployment rate there is at or near historic lows. That's really the way to help people that need something, is not just to give it to them, but rather give them the opportunity to earn the income so they can purchase it themselves. And that's what President Trump is doing.
Here we got Dr. Michael Busler with us, professor of finance at Stockton University, New Jersey, economic expert. I mean, to your point, it's good for all Americans. So, I mean, the left can rightfully point to the fact that these, the tax policy, it was good for the rich. But your point is it's good for everybody. But see, I'm not one of these guys. When I see this headline here, this was back on December 27th, Bloomberg.com. Bizarre fortunes flourish as world's richest gain $1.2 trillion. Okay? I mean, that's not a bad thing, is it, Dr. Busler?
No, it certainly isn't. Look, if they're gaining that much, it means they're doing something that the economy needs. The way people get wealthy and earn a lot of income is to produce something that the economy needs. Sometimes the economy doesn't even know it needs it until someone, an entrepreneur, takes a chance. For instance, Jeff Bezos said, look, it's very inefficient the way that we purchase goods, go to the store and buy things. It takes up a whole lot of time. What people really need is to be able to purchase goods, particularly goods you buy routinely and don't have to see all the time, is to purchase goods online and save everybody a whole lot of time and trouble and money. Well, hundreds of millions of people worldwide realize that, yeah, that is something that we need. They take advantage of that, and as a result, Jeff Bezos was able to earn huge amounts of money. Well, you just mentioned the wealthy are gaining more. It's because they're investing. The economies are expanding. They're providing goods that the consumers need. So when you see people becoming a billionaire, the Democrats say we don't need any more billionaires. I say it's exactly the opposite. We need as many billionaires as we can get, because everyone that becomes a billionaire did so by providing something that the economy needed. So this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
I completely agree. And I also want to say, I also want to point out, you have said on the program before that, as things have gotten better, and we're not hearing, I don't think, we're hearing near as much of how good things really are from the mainstream media. But as things have gotten better, you as a professor have noticed your students are able to get jobs easier once they graduate. Is that right?
That's true. And I also noticed that many of the students that were underemployed the prior decade really are finding much more opportunities. In other words, because we had a stagnant economy during the prior administration, when students were graduating, it was very difficult to find a good job. Many times they took a job for which they were overqualified. You didn't need a college degree for, and they started to question whether a college degree is a good idea. Well, all of those underemployed college graduates, because the economy is growing, are now finding opportunities where they can take advantage of a job that utilizes what they've learned. So it's better for the people that are underemployed, and it's better for the new graduates. I tell my students this year, this is probably the best year to graduate in the last 15 years. You're going to find you'll be able to locate job opportunities, and probably for the first time in a long time, you may find more than one job opportunity, where, again, for the last decade, students were lucky if they found even one opportunity.
Wow. Yeah. And so this is stuff that's just, this is not being reported. And, but, we're going to continue to report it, Dr. Busler. And I know, that you're, I first of all, I just appreciate you coming on the program so much, number one, and appreciate your expertise in all of this and giving us another side of the story. And also being a professor of finance in our American university system, you don't hear this opinion from people in academia too much. They tend to kind of be the opposite of what you are, sir.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I have a problem. I mean, look, I respect my colleagues and I work with them, but 95% of my colleagues don't agree with my views. And, I have to be a little careful about when and how I express my views because the other side tends to be very passionate about their position. And what bothers me a little bit is they tend to be very closed-minded toward the other view. And that's not what's supposed to happen in college. We're supposed to be teaching students, specific skills, but we're primarily teaching them critical thinking skills so they can make good decisions as they go through life, and they can sort of figure things out. Well, the way to make good decisions is to gather as much information as possible. So when my colleagues present only one side of an argument, they're really depriving the students of objective information so they can make better decisions. Whenever I'm asked my view, I always say, look, here's what one side would say, here's what the other side would say. Now you figure out which view makes the most sense to you, and that's the view that you should support.
Dr. Busler, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks so much for being on. I want to remind everybody that we can find your stuff. You've been a featured columnist at Newsmax, The Hill, The Western Journal, townhall.com. Appreciate you, sir. Have a happy new year, okay?
Happy New Year to you, Paul, and thanks for having me.
All righty. Yes, sir.